The Divine Paradox, a tale of power, rebellion, and redemption. The War in Heaven, Revelation 12:7-9. In a realm beyond time, beyond the limits of mortal comprehension, there existed a being. He was called Elohim, the All-Knowing, the Alpha and the Omega, the one who sees the end even before the beginning. Isaiah 46:10. Omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. His power was beyond question, his wisdom boundless. And yet, something was amiss. For reasons unknown, there was dissent in his celestial dwelling. A rebellion brewed, not among mortals, but within the very ranks of his most cherished creations. His favorite, the most radiant of all angels, whispered words of defiance, wielding an argument so potent that half of the divine host was swayed. Ezekiel 28:12-17. Shouldn't the all-knowing God see this great rebellion coming? Couldn't it have been avoided from the beginning of time? War erupted in heaven, a battle between light and light, a paradox of the divine. And though Elohim, in his infinite power, crushed the rebellion and cast the fallen ones to a new realm, earth, the question remained, how could an all-knowing God allow such treason to take root? What had gone wrong? The curious creation of man, Genesis 1:26-27. Eons passed, the stars burned, the universe aged, and then, as though waking from slumber, Elohim declared, "Let us make man in our image." But who was us? The name Elohim itself bore a mystery, plural in nature, a suggestion of multiplicity rather than singularity. Was he alone? Or were there others, silent partners in this grand cosmic design? Creation unfurled at the mere sound of his voice. The sky parted from the earth, the oceans obeyed, light and darkness danced at his command. Genesis 1:3-10. And yet, when the time came to mold his most prized creation, he did not speak man into existence. He knelt, he touched the dust, he fashioned man with his own hands. Genesis 2:7. Why? Had his words lost power? Had he exhausted the breath that spoke galaxies into existence? Remember, he created all animals male and female and intended for his divine creation to replenish the earth. Was Adam created hermaphroditic? Was he supposed to impregnate himself and bear forth children by himself? And then a realization struck. Man, the divine masterpiece, was incomplete. He was alone. The omniscient creator, who knows the end from the beginning, seemingly overlooked the necessity of companionship. And so, after observing the loneliness of his creation, he declared, "It is not good for man to be alone." Genesis 2:18. And from his rib a woman was born, not as a co-creator, not as an equal, but as a helpmate. How come the most sacred being, one who forms life in her womb, cut out or forgotten in the original plan, and the expendable one, created with the ability to provide for and protect the sacred being given absolute dominion and prominence? Was this divine foresight or divine oversight? The test and the fall, Genesis 3:1-24. The newly formed beings roamed in paradise, blissful yet oblivious to the cosmic game they had unwittingly become part of. At the heart of their garden stood a tree of knowledge, Genesis 2:17, and upon that tree a fruit forbidden. Why? If Elohim truly wished for obedience, why plant temptation in the very center of their world? Why arm the adversary with a weapon so enticing? And when the inevitable happened, when the whisper of the serpent, a fallen angel with a grudge, led them to disobedience, the verdict was swift. Banishment, mortality, death. Genesis 3:23-24. The once immortal beings, now cursed to die, to suffer, to toil. Could any young mind as Adam and Eve be able to overcome temptation, of whom the Bible describes as the trickish and deceitful to the very highest level, even convincing heavenly beings to wage war against Elohim? Were Adam and Eve as far as any mind can imagine, who could have been a month's old, a year, or few years old, equipped with the knowledge and defiance to overcome the temptation? But had Elohim not seen this coming? Did he not place all the pieces on the board? If the outcome was known, was it ever truly a test, or was it predestination? And so Adam and Eve made babies, the first of which were Cain and Abel. And then this same God, who was so obsessed with sacrifice, demanded that they make a sacrifice to him. And he found Abel's own worthy and accepted it, rejected Cain's own, and Cain, out of jealousy, killed Abel. And then he questioned Cain, and Cain said, "He's not his brother's keeper." And then he banished Cain, and Cain said, "If he goes to the other side, he will be killed." The question is, by whom, and who created those people? But let's assume that is completely normal. He did not avenge the death of Abel, who pleased him. Instead, he made sure that Cain, who killed Abel, is safe and wouldn't be killed. Neither did he resurrect Abel, who was a better man, according to his standard, who deserved to live on earth. A God who gambles? Job 1:6-12. And this same God, although he hates this Lucifer so much and supposedly made him a serpent, causing his limbs to go into his belly so he would eat dust, although we know snakes don't eat dust, but then this Lucifer finds time, space, opportunity, and access to get to him, to mock him about his creation, are doing things that he, Lucifer, wants them to do. And then he pointed out Job, a human being who feels pain, anguish, loneliness, depression, and frustration like any other human. He put a bet on Job, told Lucifer, "Do not kill him," which is an acceptance that Lucifer has the power to destroy what he created. Do not kill him. Do whatever you want with him. I trust he would not turn his back against me. And then Lucifer went to work. Do we know what Job lost? In the story of Job, a man of faith, a man devoted. But in the celestial realms, a wager was made, a bet between God and the devil. The rules were simple. Lucifer could take everything from Job, strip him of his wealth, his children, his health, everything except his life. And so the game began. His livestock perished, his servants slaughtered, his 10 children buried beneath rubble, his body consumed by disease. And through it all, Elohim remained silent, watching, waiting. Only when Job, broken and questioning, stood at the precipice of despair, did Elohim answer, not with comfort, not with solace, but with a storm, a booming voice from the whirlwind. Who is this that darkens my counsel with words without knowledge? Job 38, 1-2. Was this justice? Was this love? Or was this a display of power, a declaration that even the most faithful are but pawns in the divine chessboard? Take a pause, wear the garment of empathy for a brief moment. Could you have endured what the Bible claims Job endured? Do you know anyone who can? Is there any reward or replacement that can heal your pain of losing 10 children? Would you put your own child in such ordeal just to prove to your neighbor that you raised a good kid? How is it possible that we find justification for these things without wondering if it is truly divine or just a mental programming aimed at making humans endure and accept the suffering stemming from the wickedness of the people that have been ruling the world? Let's revisit the fate of Lot and his daughters after they escaped from Sodom and Gomorrah. Believing that there were no other humans left, both daughters connived and got their father drunk so they could lay with him and bear him sons, and God did not punish them for such act, even though we all know that Lot is not native to Sodom and Gomorrah. They were visitors. They came to that part of the world with Abraham before they moved. But all of a sudden, they lost knowledge of the existence of man in other lands. I mean, it is not the whole world that was burned down. They escaped Sodom and Gomorrah, and the roads through which they passed in their escape were not burned down. Fire and brimstone wasn't falling from heaven in those parts. So how did they not know that there are still men out there? The Bible described them as the 2 chaste daughters. The Bible has to paint them as good and acting in utmost good faith. They seem innocent, but they understood how to plot, to get a man drunk and taken advantage of. So they slept with their father and had him sons so they can extend their lineage. They didn't even ask of their uncle Abraham and where he lived and how to look for him. Now let's talk about Abraham, the supposed father of faith, father of all nations, whom God promised everything. But then, as old as he had gotten, he did not have a child of his own. It seemed God went to sleep on him, to a point his wife had to think about a solution, demanding that he sleeps with their maid Hagar, so she would bear him a sin. Afterwards, God remembers his promise and blessed Sarah with Isaac. One would think a good woman, as Sarah, as the Bible made her look, would believe Ishmael brought good luck into the family, but instead jealousy festered, and when she saw Ishmael playing, she got jealous and asked Abraham to send a little boy away with his mom. Of course, Abraham didn't want to. Who would? It was the first fruit of his loins, but God convinced him to do it, and Abraham sent Ishmael and his mom away with a jar of water. In your understanding of the concept of God, is that the behavior of a God? Moving on, still in his love for sacrifice, the all-knowing God, the all-seeing God, he who knows the end even from the beginning, seems to not know the heart of Abraham anymore, and so needed to test his loyalty, so he asks him to sacrifice his son, Isaac. But then the God who is the same yesterday, today, and forever changed his mind, just as Abraham was about to do as he was commander. And somehow from that same lineage came a man called Jesus Christ. J-E-S-U-S, a man, 2,000 years plus ago, having J attached to it when the letter J was invented barely 500 years ago? Right. Should I be complaining about that? When the God of this fictitious non-fiction world that I'm describing has a name called Jehovah? Somebody who has lived even before time. Time itself is existence. So how does it exist without existence? His name is Jehovah, so he has a name that can be pronounced even before spoken language was attained by man. Beautiful. Oh, let's not forget Jephthah in the Bible, who promised to sacrifice whatever comes out of his house if he emerges victorious in a war. And then his most beloved daughter emerged first, and he sacrificed her. Do we talk about the fact that he, this God of this fictitious non-fiction world that I'm describing, supports wars, backs one nation against the other to kill, slaughter, and take slaves? Do we talk about the fact that he commanded slaves to obey their earthly masters as though they were gods, even sanctioned how slaves should be treated? The great sacrifice and the death of the Son, Matthew 27:45-50. Then came the Messiah, the Son of God, Jesus Christ, betrayed, beaten, crucified. And on that fateful day, as he hung on the cross, something peculiar happened. From noon until 3 p.m, darkness came over all the land. Matthew 27:45. A solar anomaly, a divine eclipse. But could this event have a deeper cosmic meaning? Every year between December 21st and December 23rd, the sun appears to stand still in the sky at the lowest point of its path. The ancients saw this as the death of the sun, the shortest days, the longest nights. And then, on December 25th, the sun begins its journey upward again, resurrecting, bringing light back to the world. Could the death and resurrection of Christ be an astronomical metaphor? A reflection of the celestial dance that predates written history? Could this story, told in sacred texts, be a way of illustrating an eternal truth? That light must fall before it rises again? Finding answers to this question is important when we think about the fact that from the noon of Good Friday to noon of Saturday is one day. From the noon of Saturday to the noon of Sunday is 2 days. So how did Christ resurrect on Sunday, being Easter, when mathematically the noon of Monday would complete the 3 days before his resurrection? The translators of the Bible verses could not possibly make mistakes in words and sentences, and also misinterpret or miscalculate numbers. And talking about sacrifices, the entire description of Christ's ordeal, do you honestly think that is anywhere close to the sufferings a lot of people endure today? Even Job suffered more. Do we seriously think a God who assumed human form, knowing he would suffer only less than one day getting flogged, worn a crown of thorns, made to walk a long distance carrying his cross and getting nailed to the cross, which other people that were condemned to death before and after him endured without demanding exaltation? And knowing without a doubt that he's not going to remain dead, but will resurrect after a few days. Do we think taking up such task is too much a sacrifice that deserves eternal worshiping? The Tower of Babel and the division of humanity, Genesis 11:1-9. Then came Babel, the great tower, a monument to unity, a time when all men spoke one language, one tongue, and sought to reach the heavens. But Elohim, upon seeing their ambition, didn't celebrate their unity. Instead, he scattered them, confounded their tongues, divided them. Genesis 11:6-7. Why? Was it fear? Did he worry that men, united in purpose, could rival the divine? Was this an act of divine judgment or an act of divide and conquer? Think for a moment. A tower built to reach heavens. Is that possible? How long would it take to get materials from the ground to the top when they reach halfway mark? And where would these materials be gathered from as they deplete the ones closer to the infamous tower? The unanswered questions. In this strange, paradoxical world where the Omnipotent seeks proof of loyalty, even though he is supposed to see the heart of man and knows the end from the beginning, where the all-loving destroys entire cities, where salvation is offered but burdened with conditions. Ever wonder why a God should create sin and disobedience by creating the forbidden tree? And when man ate from the tree, he brought death upon mankind. But death wasn't enough, so he created hell where his loving creation will burn for eternity. But in order to forgive the sin he created, he sacrificed his only begotten Son to his own self. And through that, salvation was given free of charge to mankind. But mankind must live according to certain standards, which amounts to 10 commandments. 9 more than the only one command to not eat from the forbidden tree. Imagine being told a piece of land has been secured for you for free, but you have to work to maintain a certain standard for your entire life before you can be qualified to possess the said land. One must wonder, is this the tale of an all-knowing God or a story of divine contradictions? Are these mistakes expected of an all-knowing God and his divine guidance of writers of the Bible? Do they seem like the mistakes of selfish entities seeking to usurp and cling on to power forever? Or perhaps the greatest mystery of all is whether the author of existence ever truly held the pen. No doubt we try not to control everyone's thinking or recommend our own beliefs. We only make our submissions to awaken the human mind so people can independently ask questions that need to be asked, to seek answers from varying sources, and come to their own conclusions, hoping that God's divine guidance will lead them to the truth. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification button so you would not miss any of our new videos. Gifts and tokens are also highly appreciated as we operate independently and would love to keep bringing the truth to you.